In a quiet Russian village where winters came early and stayed long, there lived an old cobbler named Peter. His hands were calloused from decades of stitching boots and patching soles, but his heart was gentle and warm. Peter was poor not because he was lazy, but because fewer people needed cobblers. In these modern times, villagers threw out worn shoes instead of repairing them. Peter didn't mind. He lived alone in a tiny cottage with a sputtering fireplace and a leaky roof. Each night, he would sip watered-down soup and hum lullabies he remembered from childhood. "As long as I have fire and bread," he would say, "I have enough." One evening, just as a thick snow began to fall, Peter lit his final log in the fireplace. He sat by the flames, sewing a pair of boots that no one had come to claim. The wind howled outside like a hungry wolf. Suddenly, knock, knock, knock. Peter rose, surprised. Who would be out on such a night? He opened the door and blinked in shock. 3 strangers stood before him. They were shivering, their clothes tattered, and their boots more whole than leather. "Please, kind sir," one of them said, "we are cold and hungry. May we rest here for a while?" Peter hesitated for only a second before stepping aside. Come in, my fire is small, but it's warm." He gave them what was left of his soup and tore a piece of his last loaf of bread for each. Then he inspected their boots. "These won't last the night," he muttered. He pulled out his needle and thread and got to work. His fingers were slow but steady. He worked through the evening, mending tears, replacing soles and polishing leather. The strangers sat quietly, watching him. One of them whispered something in a language Peter didn't understand. Another smiled gently. When the boots were finished, Peter handed them back. They're not new, but they'll keep your toes from freezing." The strangers bowed deeply. "Thank you, kind cobbler, for your warmth, your bread, and your kindness." Then, as silently as they came, they left into the snowy dark. Peter sighed, stretched his back, and crawled into bed. The next morning, he awoke early, but something was different. His workbench gleamed. On it sat 3 pairs of shoes unlike anything he had ever seen. They were stitched with golden thread, the leather smooth as silk, and the soles strong but light. Inside each shoe was a tiny, glowing symbol he didn't recognize. Peter gasped. He touched them with trembling hands. "I didn't make these." Just then, the mayor of the town knocked. "I heard strange visitors passed your way last night," the mayor said. "Is it true?" Peter nodded slowly. "And these shoes?" The mayor spotted them. "Where did they come from?" Peter told the story. The mayor was amazed. He bought a pair on the spot and paid Peter more gold than he'd seen in years. Soon, word spread. Everyone wanted shoes like those. Rich merchants, noblewomen, even travelers from other towns came with money in hand. Peter could barely keep up, but he used the gold wisely. He fixed his roof. He bought better tools. He hired a young apprentice from the village and taught him everything he knew. But most importantly, every week, he declared free shoe day. Anyone who was poor, cold, or down on their luck could come to his cottage and get their shoes repaired for nothing. Children with holes in their boots, mothers with broken sandals, and old men with worn-out souls. Peter mended them all with a smile. Years passed. Peter grew older, slower, but never bitter, and sometimes on quiet snowy nights, he would sit by his fire, sip warm tea, and smile to himself. Maybe they were angels, he would whisper, or maybe they were just good people who needed help. But whoever they were, they changed my life. And if you ever visit that village on a winter's night, some say you might still find the cobbler's cottage, filled with light, warmth, and the sound of a needle sewing kindness into leather.